one true finite resource you can't get more of. Unlike money, you can't earn more time, you can't buy more time, and you certainly can't give more time to somebody else. The time you have left on this planet is all you have left. Every second counts. And as you get older, it seems like time just moves faster. And before you know it, death is standing at the foot of your bed. That is, unless you live in a world where nobody wants to die. Today we're diving into the psychology of Detective James Karra, a character haunted by trauma, fractured by guilt, and alienated from a society he no longer recognizes. This exploration delves into the impact of immortality on Karra's mind, his struggles with guilt and identity, and the psychological toll of his darkest moments. We'll examine his encounters with the Stranger, a mysterious figure who seems to haunt his every step. We will also cover how alcoholism plays a bigger role than players might have initially thought if you were one of the ones who played this game. Using real-world psychological theories, it's time to unpack the concepts covered in Nobody Wants to Die. Spoilers ahead. If you enjoy psychological breakdowns of characters in video games, consider liking and subscribing. Nobody Wants to Die imagines a world where society has transcended the limits of mortality. The invention of Ichorite, a substance enabling consciousness transfer, allows the wealthy to live indefinitely. But this gift of eternal life is only accessible through economic and legal oppression, entrapping the lower class in a cycle of servitude. This technology has created a class divide where the elite control life and death, while the impoverished are forced to pay the body subscription tax in order to keep their own bodies. Those unable to afford this tax are stripped of their physical forms and have their consciousness stored into a digital limbo, waiting for the day that they might be auctioned to the highest bidder. As a detective, Karra faces a world where life itself is bought and sold. In a desperate attempt to find peace and purpose, Karra clings to his duty, yet this pursuit of justice only drives him further from his own humanity. In this dystopian future, man has achieved godhood. Well, almost. Immortality is no longer a dream, but rather a harsh reality enabled by Ichorite, a technology that fuels endless body transfers. Terror management theory suggests that our awareness of mortality drives much of our behavior, pushing us to find purpose and create meaning. Without the finality of death, the wealthy in Karra's world drift into existential malaise, their actions losing urgency and purpose. They live detached from the everyday struggles of the impoverished masses. In James's world, death is no longer a boundary, and this lack of finality allows the rich to become numb, emotionally, morally, and ethically so. Philosopher Martin Heidegger explored this concept through Being Toward Death, where confronting mortality enables a more authentic life. Because death is certain for us in the real world, we grasp what it means to live and to be human. But in a society that denies death, life loses its true value. People become mere commodities, disposable, replaceable, and ultimately hollow. The mechanics of Ichorite, while powerful, are far from flawless. With each body transfer, individuals risk desynchronization, a disconnect between mind and body that induces agonizing physical symptoms. Detective James Karra suffers from this, trapped in the body of an addict, which in turn amplifies his psychological and physical strain. His reliance on the drug ambrosia to mitigate desynchronization effects underscore the imperfection of this pseudo-immortality. Desynchronization mirrors the Festinger theory of cognitive dissonance, where the mind struggles to reconcile its identity with a foreign body. However, normally, cognitive dissonance in real life doesn't induce so much physically debilitating pain, which often touches toes with death itself. For Karra, this dissonance destabilizes his sense of self, causing headaches, hallucinations, and memory lapses that deepen his disillusionment with immortality. His deteriorating mental state reflects a core failure of this society's promise. While the body can be sustained indefinitely, the psyche gradually frays, revealing the futility of everlasting life without stability or continuity. Because what's the point of living forever if at the end of the day, you aren't you? Psychologically, this erosion mirrors the French psychiatrist Pierre Janet's concept of dissociative identity disorder, where the mind fragments as it tries to adapt to conflicting experiences. Studies in neuroplasticity and memory reconsolidation highlight that memories slightly change each time they're accessed. For Karra, each transfer amplifies these changes, creating irreversible distortions. With every body swap, he becomes less grounded in his own history, each layer of memory and identity slipping further from his grasp. Eventually, the fate that awaits anyone who tries to live forever is a psychological rupture of the mind, where their psyche falls into oblivion. The irony is chilling. As technology promises eternal life, it simultaneously strips people of everything that makes them them. Their memories, their continuity, their very essence. This is further proof that humans should not try to disturb the natural order of things. After being unable to continue his life as a pro MLB player, he found his love for becoming a detective. For Karra, solving cases is more than just a job, it's an obsession. It doesn't matter if James shouldn't continue a case, or if everyone, including his boss, is telling him to stop. Even the threat of death won't discourage James from zeroing in on the case until it's solved. This compulsion ties into the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological phenomenon where unfinished tasks persist in our mind, demanding resolution. Certainly, many of you watching and listening to this have this compulsion. I'm also willing to bet that those of you who resonate with the Zeigarnik effect also love checklists or to-do lists. I know I do. You give me a list and I can't stop until everything's done. It nags at my head relentlessly. The train massacre represents Karra's darkest moment and a turning point in his psychological decline. After his wife's death, he hunts down the dealer who sold her the drug that led her to a true death. In his desperation, Karra boards a crowded train, unleashing a hail of bullets in a frantic attempt to capture the dealer. His partner, Seth, tries to intervene, but Karra's rage drives him to accidentally kill civilians as they're caught in the crossfire, culminating in an explosion that devastates half the city. Well, what did this psychologically do to James? A myriad of things happened that led to this breaking point, but essentially, he had a psychological breakdown from this tragedy. So he dissociates, creating a separate fractured identity that embodies his guilt from everything that happened. From this, the stranger is born. This psychological split allows Karra to externalize his guilt, channeling his shame into an alter ego who taunts and reminds him of his darkest moments. Karra's dissociation becomes a defense mechanism, a way of distancing himself from the unbearable reality of his actions. Throughout his journey, the stranger appears as a taunting voice, urging Karra to confront his darkest impulses and even perform acts that his own subconscious is likely telling him to do. For example, giving a true death to the members of high society in order to destabilize the system, or at least slow its progress.
You know this is your only chance to punish a man who's above all law. If you shoot through a Ichorite, he won't instigate any more body taxes. It will take months, maybe years, before he gets back on his feet. You gave time to people who really need it.
At times, the stranger even feels like a separate entity, capable of speaking to James despite blocked communication channels, suggesting that he's a construct of Karra's mind. The stranger identity functions as both a tormentor and a guide, encouraging Karra to face the moral ambiguity he wishes to deny. The stranger embodies the darkness Karra wishes to suppress, forcing him into uncomfortable confrontations with his inner demon. This psychological break, however, isn't unique to Karra. The game hints that the others who have endured repeated body transfers, such as Green, the creator of immortality, have also suffered psychological schisms. Green's own descent into madness ultimately led him to massacre his high society peers in his own secret basement before ending his own life, underscoring the psychological cost of endless body transfers. Karra's trauma and exposure to violence also leave him with PTSD, a condition that plagues him with nightmares, hallucinations, and flashbacks. In dream theory, nightmares represent unresolved conflicts, such as yearning to be with your wife but being conflicted because you're immortal and can't join her in death. For Karra, these night terrors force him to relive his most painful memories, his wife's death, keeping him locked in an endless cycle of guilt and regret. His issues bleed into his waking moments, as he will also endure painful hallucinations of his wife and flashbacks of his massacre on the train. To numb his pain, Karra turns to alcohol as a form of self-medication. According to Edward Kansian's self-medication theory, individuals struggling with trauma often use substances to suppress distressing emotions. For Karra, alcohol provides a brief respite, yet it also leads him into a self-destructive cycle. This dependence reflects avoidance coping, where Karra uses alcohol to avoid confronting his emotions. However, as his reliance on it grows, his judgment becomes clouded, making him impulsive and reckless. His addiction traps him in a spiral of guilt and despair, weakening his inhibitions and intensifying his feelings of despair. I think alcohol plays a bigger role than we might initially think here. You see, alcohol is first a depressant. It causes detrimental modifications to the chemicals in our brain, causing significant imbalances and severe deterioration, especially when you drink as much as James does. This leads to feelings like anger, often throwing people into a rage, and this might be one of the factors that led James to his massacre on the train. Alcohol also destroys brain cells and reduces the numbers of neurotransmitters in our brain permanently. James's alcohol abuse accelerates the synchronization issues that he's facing. Simply put, the alcohol is making it harder for James's consciousness to fuse with the already previously addict-ridden body which he inhabits. Alcoholism creates a vicious cycle. You're in pain. It hurts, so you drink. But it makes it even worse, and it doesn't keep the pain at bay for long. So you drink again, but this time you drink more to null the pain, and it temporarily brings relief, but never long enough. But James's wife, Rachel, chose to end her life rather than face a hollow existence of body transfers, leaving Karra in denial, haunted by the memories of the life that they once shared. Rachel had an issue with both the concept of living for forever and with the societal issues that came along as a result from this system. Rachel's death becomes a wound that James cannot heal, a ghostly presence that shadows him at every turn, fueling his drive for redemption and a quest that only leads him further from peace. And the fact that he often dreams of his wife on a beautiful beach, which is a stark contrast to the Orwellian landscape that is his reality, leaves the player with another message: that James craves death. I talked about death instinct quite a bit in my psychoanalysis video of James Sunderland from Silent Hill 2, so if you want to see that, I'll link that down below. But death drive is a Freudian theory which postulates that humans have an equal innate drive towards death as much as they do with living. We know that Detective James Karra, through his recurrent dreams of his wife and the beach, with him constantly trying to get out of the water to join her, only to be chained by the Ichorite and pulled under, that he yearns for a final death, for peace. In this world, as technology promises immortality, it strips him of his humanity, leaving him a ghost within an endless cycle of rebirth. His story forces us to confront a haunting question: do you really want to live forever? That is a concept that we're going to explore here in this video, so click that, but before you go, liking and subscribing for the rest of eternity would be greatly appreciated.